Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. You would think after 319 episodes that would get old, but it doesn't. Here we are again, Peter, you and I.
That's right.
You and I.
For better or for
doing it
worse.
again.
Thick and thin.
Yeah.
Death do us part. Jesus.
He's teasing me, folks, because I always tell him he's like my second wife. My male wife. Not that I'm like that, but you know, I probably shouldn't have said that. Anyways,
No, you can say whatever you damn well please. It's enough of that. You can have your damn opinion.
Podcast number 320. Here is the title of this podcast. Do you dare be rich with creative real estate deals? Are you doing this? That's the title.
Oh, are you doing this?
Yeah. So here is the description. All too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it is losing weight, building a business, or just looking for a good real estate transaction to do. We put too much pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will notice and talk about. Or make you feel fulfilled, even happy. But what if I told you this attitude is like shooting yourself in the foot and causing you to bleed to death when it comes to creative real estate? Here's another thought. What if you could make one simple mind change or mindset? Think about it. Is it possible you could be rich from creative real estate in a year from now? Then, get a load of this. In the next 60 minutes, I plan to guide you through some simple exercises that could walk you from the pits to the ritz. Now, naturally, you need to do the work. But what if the work became a whole lot simpler, easier, and way more fun? Think that would be different? And that's just for starters. Knowing this stuff is what made me buy millions of dollars of real estate recently, and now I'm going to share it with you. Ta-da!
You know, every other sentence I was going to go like, yeah, that was me this morning. But I restrained myself to let you get through your description. But that's quite real, my friend. That's quite real.
True.
I actually said to myself, calm down. It'll be fine. Don't worry about all the little details. Just talk to Bill. We'll do the next thing. We'll be fine. Relax. Not a big deal. It's only money. It's only houses. It's only your life. Don't get excited.
Okay, so first of all, before I even get started with my housekeeping type stuff, I'm going to do something a little bit strange. So I am extremely proud of my children, as most fathers should be. But this podcast I'm going to dedicate to my oldest daughter, Jessie. She's not in real estate these days, which is okay with me. I mean, she's a big girl. She could do what she wants. But she's a new executive with a pretty high-powered job. And I'm proud of her for the simple fact of, for probably 10 years, I watched her climb the ladder of success. You know, and she's college degreed. Very much so. In fact, she's talking about going to get a PhD recently, which is interesting. So she took a different path than I did, right? And sometimes it's hard to give her advice because I have not experienced some of the things she has experienced. But what I'm going to talk about today, as soon as we're done with this recording, I'm going to send her the link because I, for some reason, as a dad, think this will help her in life, in her job, as a new executive. So this is not so much just for creative real estate. I have kind of twisted it to creative real estate because, as we all know, in my world, I have a one-track mind, and it always comes back to creative real estate. All conversations, all roads, all things that happen in Bill's world comes back to creative real estate.
And probably rightly so.
I just freaking love it. So there you go. All right. So Jesse, I hope you enjoy. The housekeeping things, thank you for being here. We record this episode, or every episode, about 9:30-ish a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday mornings. We live stream to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Most people will watch us on Twitter or YouTube. If you have any questions, if you want to be part of the show, you can go to YouTube or you can go to Facebook. Just type in Flipping Houses for Rookies and we'll be there. I have a big screen in front of me, so if you ask a question, we will be able to answer it. Try to keep the questions to the podcast because we only have a certain amount of time and I have a whole agenda while we're here. Otherwise, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side, there's a support ticket there. You can also go to WhatsApp Messenger and type in Let's Talk Real Estate, and we have a whole group there where you can ask questions. So there's plenty of support from mostly from me. There's not many of, I mean, I have a team, but lately with the training and stuff, it's just myself. And then, of course, Peter's there, and my other partner, Sean, will help sometimes too. So that's it. Also, there is a link in the chat that will help you with today's topic. There's a really cool link there. So I'm sorry, I keep saying the chat. The link in the description of wherever you're watching us or hearing us, whether it's a podcast or on one of the live streams, there's a link there so you can get some help. Okay? So we just don't leave you hanging today and tell you all this good stuff. There's always a link with follow-up and kind of like homework and things to do from the podcast. So you just don't listen to us and then, fade away and then next week listen to another podcast, that kind of stuff, The RIAs are like that. You go 1 month and the guy talks about foreclosure and you buy the foreclosure package and you go home and you're right. And then next month you go back and the guy's talking about subject to. So you buy that package and you're like trying to get it done and it just makes you more confusing. So I try to prevent that by putting the links in the chat and having follow up and giving you things that you can do. Okay. So enough of that. We wasted 7 minutes doing that. I'm sorry about that, but here we go. So, Pete, what if I told you focusing on goals killed my business and crashed my income in a frightening degree? In fact, not only did it crash everything, but I was staring at losing it all.
Almost doesn't make sense because people talk so much about how important goals are. You have to have goals. But that's not the be all and end all, is it?
Yeah, well, I'm too intense. When I focus on a goal, I start blowing shit up, man, because I'm just too intense. And I have to reel it in. So, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. We're not talking about me and being intense. Here's what I learned. Prevailing wisdom claims that the best way to achieve what you want in life is to set a specific actionable goals. Doesn't have to be a specific. It could be just specific actionable goals. Mm-hmm. I even went as far as changing changing these goals to adjust, like making them lesser, which by the way is a famous thing with goal making is you make a goal that you can achieve, that you can achieve. You don't make it stretchingly realistic. Like, you want to read 50 pages in a book, and you know that you could read 50 pages. Well, make it 75. Yeah. You want to lose 20 pounds and you've done it in the past. Well, don't make it 20 pounds, make it 30 or 35. Mm-hmm. You want to go to the gym 3 times a week. You know you could do it 3 times a week. Well, tell yourself you should do 5. Make your goals stretchingly realistic, right?
Yeah. I think there's a real reason, very practical reason for that. When you plan on doing something, you never plan on things coming against it, countering your activities and getting in the way. So if you plan for 10, stuff will get in the way and you'll get 5 done. So you probably need to plan 20, stuff gets in the way, you might manage the 10. So just very, very practically, if you don't push a little ahead, you'll get pushed back a few. So,
yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't even thinking of that because Grant Cardone has a book called 10X Rule.
It's on my table.
That's what he talks
kitchen
about.
Table. Yeah.
That's what he talks about, right?
Yeah.
So I even went as far as like chanting these affirmations several times a day. Putting them on mirrors. Right?
I can't do that. I don't every event. Oh, I like myself and I'm beautiful. I just can't do those. So what happened when you tried it? What happened?
So I put them on mirrors, and I even went as far as I put them on the ceiling above my bed, right? So I wake up in the morning and I'd see them. I go to bed at night, I would see them. I've done all this stuff. Sticky notes on my computers, right? All this kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I did all this, my statistics would crash.
Oh, that doesn't even make sense.
Very often, steep declines cause me to even dabble with depression.
Well.
And live in a dangerous environment. Now, I'm being extremely personal right now. I don't have to do this. I'm being vulnerable right now. Because this is true. And you've been with me through those times. Right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, and I'm not anybody special, there's a lot of people like me, but when you have a personality like I do, which is not a small personality, right? I don't like to do things alone. I'm not introverted. I'm definitely out there. I definitely like to swing. I like to take chances. I do all kinds of crazy stuff. My friends at the church say I'm a pirate and a bum, right? Because
in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, and I'm always swinging. I'm always out there. I'm always doing new stuff. I'm not worried about doing, and that's my personality. But there's a downside to that. Because as much good as I can do, when my mind flips around and I get into that little bit of depression and I don't feel good about myself or I don't think I'm doing the right thing, I pull in just as big of bad things as I do good things. So when it flips around, I have to be careful with what I think of or how I think, because I influence so many people. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not saying this is just, it took me years to come to terms with that this is who I really am, because I was always like, nah, that's not me. That was Joe that did that, or that was, Gail that did that, or that was, somebody else that did that, right? And it took me a lot of counseling and a lot of confront to realize that's just who I am, right? And there you go. And not everybody is like that. I thought everybody had these gifts and these not even gifts, but these personality traits. And they were just buried somewhere, and we could just pull them out and use them whenever we wanted to. So my point in being that way, and it is a bit arrogant, and I'm sorry if I'm being boastful, but it's just, if you know me, these are things that are being told to me. They're not even my own realizations, to be honest with you, because it took me a while to come around and say, why does everybody say that about me? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The point is when you in your own world do good and have the ability to do good, you have just as much ability to do bad. In other words, the pendulum swings both ways. So I remember one time, and I'm sidetracked here, I remember one time my little sister, who's 5 years younger than me, was having some trouble. They actually had a flood at their house. They lived next to a creek, like literally a creek that was no bigger than like 2 feet wide, right? And we had horrible weather, and they lived in a little valley in the bottom of a small hill, and anyways, it flooded.
Yeah.
And I said to her, sister, when something that bad happens you should be excited because something that big is going to come along that's good. Because that's the way the universe works, right? Remember one time I was with I married my first wife, and we went on our honeymoon. We were in California for 3 weeks and came back at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning to enter our apartment to find out it had burned.
Jeez.
At 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, they left us a note because they couldn't reach us. They left us a note on the door. So we ended up, I don't remember what we did. We stayed wherever. I think we went to a hotel or whatever. But in both cases, like with my sister and myself, what happened was we ended up getting like insurance money. Where we lived was a one-bedroom. I owned a gas station, so it was behind the gas station is where we lived. It was a one-bedroom apartment, and we took the insurance money, and because my father-in-law at the time and myself were very handy, we turned it into a two-bedroom apartment. And because we turned it into a two-bedroom apartment, all of a sudden we had a place for kids, and we had Jessie, our first daughter, because of that fire. Seriously, that's what happened. Because of that fire, my wife was like, it's time for us to have kids because now we have a bedroom. So we made a bedroom for her and decorated it for her, and then we had her, and that started everything, right?
It's crazy.
Same thing with my sister. She had this whole flood, and they ended up renovating, and they ended up with a whole downstairs finished room, and they later sold the house, and they made like 35 grand. Where they wouldn't have done that had they not done that. So the pendulum swings both ways. I sidetracked there. I'm sorry, but I think you get the idea, right?
No, that's important though, because stuff like that happens all the time.
Right.
The short story, your student who bought her first house in like Danbury area where there was a tornado 5 hours after she bought it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And she's freaking out. You go, don't worry about it. The insurance will pay for it. It gave her so much money. She made like 20,000 or 30,000 extra from the insurance money for the repairs that she was doing anyways, right?
She got $80,000 for the damage, and she ended up. I mean, she made that much more in profit because they put a new roof on and they did all this extra work that they weren't planning on doing, that it didn't need, and it brought them way more money. So so
don't over freak out.
So naturally, this is a little bit weird to me, and it creates this quandary in my mind because everybody talks about goals, and I need to completely ignore goals because when I do use goals and I'm intense on them and I'm like trying to put them in, right, I would crash. Right? And I knew I needed goals to get where I wanted to go. I mean, I read so much stuff, about all these different studies, about how people write their goals down in college, and 10 years later they have these empires, and so I just figured it was me. Yet again, I'm being told I'm a freak, and I'm like, okay, so I'm just kind of like living with this, never really talking about it because I wasn't sure that it was 100% correct. So I just figured it was a quirk in my personality, right? And believe me, I got a list of those. I definitely have quirks in my personality, right? I mean, I could tell you this one quirk in my personality that I will gladly share.
Yeah.
I don't know even how to even say this, but when I come up with an idea, the more people that tell me that it won't work and it's wrong, the more I want to do it. And later on, Dan Kennedy's a marketing guru, taught me that the more you go against the herd, the better off you'll be. And my daughter Emma worked for me, my youngest daughter, and I remember for a long time when she was dead set against doing something, I knew I had it right. If my wife was dead set against doing something, I knew I had it right. If my mother was dead set against me doing something, I knew I was spot on. And I would just buck the herd, and I would go for it, and it would have amazing results. So just a point there, right? I mean, that's a quirk in my personality. At one point, Peter, I even thought that because I had such strong goals and intention for those goals, that I was being needy or generating this thing called too much must have. on my outcome. I must have it. I must have it. I must have it. I know in my earlier days, I blew up a lot of deals, which I teach now, like don't be needy, which is really hard with my coaching clients because everybody, when they get into real estate, you brought this up to surface, everybody that gets in real estate wants to do it because of the money. Right?
Yeah.
And I could tell you that's good to do a deal or two, but I could also tell you if you're going to make a living out of it and you're going to consistently make income, doing it for the money is the wrong thing. It's you might as well just put a gun to your head and put 3 bullets in a six chamber revolver and just keep pulling the trigger, and eventually those 3 bullets will show up. Right? What do they call that? Russian roulette, right?
Yeah. But I think it only takes 1 bullet.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that you might get one of the empty chambers and get away with it for a little while, but it's not going to stay that way forever. My point is that you have to like it. You have to want to help people. You have to want to help people that can't sell their house normally. You have to want to help people that normally can't buy a house. There has to be some passion there. And if you don't have passion for it, you're not going to make it. It's just a core thing, which is not why I'm here today. But I only learned this because I'm telling you what I'm going through right now is some of my own stories, which is not why people come to this podcast, is to listen about my life. But I'm going to get to the point now. You'll see in a few minutes how this is all going to tie in, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if I have these troubles, I am sure that others do too.
Oh, hell
right?
Yeah.
And just like dealing with sellers, right? The more you chase them, the faster they run. This was causing what I call a roller coaster in my life and with my income. Ups and then downs and then ups and then downs. Right?
Sure.
And I couldn't see it. I was confused and sort of apathetic about this whole process of making goals. Until I learned this.
Here it comes.
Goals are good for setting a direction.
Mm-hmm.
But systems or habits are best for making progress. See, what I noticed is when I was crashed, I would, when I was like down and out and I was like, these goals aren't working and I just got frustrated. And you've been with me several times when I've done this. I remember one time we were sitting in my office and I had a phone and we had all these magic systems on how we're like, all this automation on how we're taking messages. And you were like, let's just make some phone calls. You came to my office and just like, let's make some phone calls. You did that. Right? And you're like, and we just sat down and there was a bunch of messages on my machine I didn't even know I had because I wasn't checking my messages. I was expecting the VA to do it. It was all over there. Mm-hmm. And we answered like, I don't know, 5 or 6 messages. We were just talking about this on the last podcast. We answered 5 or 6 messages and some guy was like, well, I called you a week ago. Well, it ended up being a 3-family house that we bought. We managed for what, a year or two?
Year and
a half. How long
did
we have that?
Year and a half.
How long? Year and a half. And then we sold it, and how much did we make? 80 grand,
90.
I think?
90
grand. Yeah.
90.
Okay. This was one of those times where I was just crashed, and it's like, we've got to do something. Right? So I noticed when I was crashed, I would just go back to basics. And do what I used to do when I first started real estate. Not even creative real estate, just started real estate. My Ron LeGrand days, 20 years ago. Like, go back to the books, actually pull the books out and like look at them. And, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I don't do that anymore. Oh yeah, we used to do that all the time. And we would blah, 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 blah. Right? And I would tell you all these stories like, oh yeah, well, we've done this and we've done that. And you'd say to me, well, how come you stopped, Bill? And I often would say, Pete, I don't know. Right? So basically what I would do is I would bypass everything I was doing, right? When I was desperate. When I was desperate, I would just start bypassing everything. right? And trying to expand and do the simple work. So I would stop trying to expand is what I'm more like saying. Mm-hmm. So I would stop trying to expand and just do the simple work, the grunt work. And I noticed that when I did that, all of a sudden, boop, I popped back up into affluence.
Yeah.
Right?
Crazy.
Then I read a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. To only find out I was missing a few pieces in my process.
Really?
And today, I would like to share them with you and our listeners. And my daughter, Jessie.
So far we have goals are not the end all. They're okay, but you have to have the system, the habits to follow through. That's what we have so far, right?
So the goals, think of it this way. You could do this in so many different arenas, but the goals are the compass. Mm-hmm. The habits and process are the vehicle to get there. Mm-hmm. It could be the boat, it could be the airplane, it could be whatever, but it's the way to get there. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I'm going to mix my education up right now. Right, so. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute here. Because I've taken a couple different places I've been and things I've done and things I've read, and I'm going to put them together. And until just recently, I didn't know all this. And I had like this skeleton in my closet, like, Bill, you better not do goals. That's why we don't talk about it a lot here. I do it the first of the year because everybody's talking about goals, and I say goals are for losers. Those are my. That's why, because I feel like a loser when I use goals. So the first thing that James Clear taught me is improve by 1%. Mm-hmm. He says 1% a day. Even though it isn't usually like notable, like something you notice or noticeable, it is always extremely meaningful. Now, here's an important factor to me. All right, before I go on to that, because I'm going to switch gears here in a minute. So let's say that you make one phone call a week to a seller. It's not enough to make a living.
Nope.
But now all of a sudden you make 2 phone calls a week.
Yep.
You get up to 5, which is 1 a day. Right? And I've been doing like in the Let's Talk Real Estate WhatsApp group. I do, like last night I did it for an hour and 40 minutes. I post in there, hey, I'm going to make some closing calls, live closing calls tonight at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want, you can join me. So I had a dozen or 15 people on this call, and what I do is they come onto a Zoom. I give them my personal Zoom link, and then I go into my software, which it used to be REI Reply and is now going to Creative REI Reply because I'm now partners in that business, and we have a whole system, Creative REI Reply, that gives you leads and has a bunch of checklists and everything that the best of my stuff is all there now, right? So the point, which by the way, you can go to creativereireply.com if you're interested, right? So the point is this. I make these live calls. I made several calls. I don't know, 12, 15 calls. And they actually hear me. That the seller has no idea that these people are listening. They're all muted in the background. And they're listening. First of all, they're watching me work. So how I go through my system and find these leads and what I do and the little bit of research I do before the calls and all that kind of stuff, right? So if it's something you think you want to do, just go to WhatsApp, Messenger, get into Let's Talk Real Estate, and I post it there. I was doing them 2 or 3 times a week for about a month or two when I was in Florida. because I was able to do that. But nowadays I do it, once every couple weeks, every 2-3 weeks. I don't do it as often. Well, I make the calls more often, but I don't have everybody there. But what I was saying to people on this call is this really as hard as you thought it was?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that you used to tell me, and my acquisition managers tell me, even Jessie, when she was like training with me, like the first thing, I take you on my first call with me, we sit in the house, and the first thing you say is, wow, it wasn't as hard as I thought. Mm-hmm. And it was way more casual than I ever thought it would be.
It's like you're talking to people. See, I think when rookies look at this business, they think of other professionals in the business. So what's that? It's a realtor. It's a lawyer. It's a banker. How do these people...
Financial planner.
Yeah, all those guys, insurance people. How did these people talk? First, they're dressed up in suits and dresses and fancy. They're at big desks with signs, and you're like 10 feet away, and they're talking down their nose at you because they have all the power and you have to do what they say. And they're very professional and impersonal, and they don't care about you. They're just like, here's what it is, take it or leave it. And there you are at the kitchen table talking to them as if they were a person and as if you were. Who knew? Right. And it's always shocking. I've been in the cars and, doing calls and having somebody call back and they listen. It's crazy. It's like people helping people. And every phone call doesn't result in a product. You're looking for the right person. So you just talk to them until you find the right guy. And then you move from there.
So here's the magic of any success.
Mm-hmm.
This is my core staple. Be yourself, be honest. Gee, Mr. Seller, I never heard of that. You know what? Let me go find out and call you back.
Yeah.
Just be yourself and be honest. Mr. Prospect, I really need to make this deal because I haven't made a deal yet. Would you help me make this deal? Would you help me put this together? I need to learn how to do this. And I've done that in the beginning. I need to learn how to do this. So if you're willing to work with me, I'll make sure there's benefit to you.
Yeah.
Right? Here's the interesting thing to me that's really odd.
Mm-hmm.
Including yourself did this. You come to me and say, hey, Bill, let's partner.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do all the legwork. I'll do all this. I'll do all of that. And we'll split the deal. I'll do all the work. So my first response to you is, well, what do I need you for? I already know how to do all the work. I don't need anybody to do the legwork. I have it all under control. I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what are you going to do for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's a lot of work for me to teach you how to do this. Right?
That's right.
It's a lot of what we call developed traffic, extra traffic for me, because now I got to make sure that you're not doing something stupid, you're not doing something wrong, you're not doing something behind my back, you don't have some other intention that I have and blow my deal up. I have all these things I but I have concerns about if you're part of the deal. I'm much better to give you a $500 or $1,000 finder fee and bring me the deal, and I just go out off and do it myself. It's much harder to teach you how to do it when you're in my deal, because now not only do I have to educate the seller, but I have to educate you, and it's just twice as much work for me.
That's right.
Now here's the interesting thing, right? This is what makes me like, this is weird. Because you're willing to do that with me. Like you're willing to put in that time and you're willing to be vulnerable and you're willing to do all that. Why don't you just go find a seller and do that with them? Be willing to go through it and learn with them. Because here's the misnomer. If you have a motivated seller, they'll do anything you want. You can't mess it up. So if you have experience with, you're thinking in your mind right now, you're listening to us and you think in your mind, oh, the seller wouldn't do that. You had a suspect. You had a seller that was not motivated to do the deal the way you wanted to do the deal. Mm-hmm. And that's why you lost the deal. It's not because you messed up. It's because they were not motivated enough. Right?
That's right.
A good gauge of that is when they're calling you and you're not calling them. Mm-hmm. When they're chasing you and you're not chasing them. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the harder you chase a suspect, the harder you chase a prospect, the faster they run, they turn into a suspect. Okay,
Yep.
so let's move on now, because the next thing that's an important factor to me is in Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy's book called The Gap and the Gain, which is an amazing book. They spoke about someone like me, who's a serial entrepreneur, by the way. I found out when I was 35 or 40 that I wasn't a weirdo. I was just a serial entrepreneur. I had short circuits on just like running my own business, right? So let's do a little drill here. So what they said was, suppose you had 3 circles, right? It's a picture in their book, 3 circles.
Yep.
There's one on top, one below it, and one below that. So they're stacked on top of one another.
Okay.
Okay. The top one is what your ideal scene is, or as they call it, the ideal. So the top one is the ideal scene. Let's call it the goal.
Right. That's what you want.
Right? It's where you're heading. That's where you want to go. That's what your intentions are.
Destination.
Destination. That's a good one. Very good. The middle one, all right, the next one down, is what you have achieved. What you have done.
On this particular step or just in general?
In general.
In general. Okay.
Below that one, the lowest one is where you start. So if you were to start at the bottom, you start here, you move up to the next circle, it's what you achieved, and then you move up to the next circle, it's your ideal scene.
Okay.
Okay, kind of like where you want to go, your goal or your destination. That's a great word, destination. Okay. Now, he goes through, he goes through plenty of pages, I think chapters, because I have to go back and read it every once in a while, because I'm going to tell you, this is my ruin. This is what ruins me every single time. So I'm being vulnerable here, and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to my daughter, so you can throw this back at me when I'm giving you a hard time. What I was doing is I'd be in the middle circle. I know I started it, so you don't, once you get into start, you come out of start and you start doing things, you don't hardly ever go back there. So I'm in the achievement circle, right? And here's what I'm doing is I'm looking up at the goals. I'm looking up at my destination or my ideal scene. And I'm measuring my achievement based on those goals, which I don't have. Now, here's the amazing thing is, you ever go to the beach, which I know you have, and you stand at the edge of the water in the sand, and you look out at that horizon?
Yeah.
If you were to get on a boat and start heading for that horizon, would you ever get there?
No, it's like tomorrow never comes.
It's like the horizon keeps moving, right?
Yep. I mean, by definition, it's the thing over there. So
right.
When you get there, it's the thing over there. Yeah.
Now, here's a problem, which my youngest daughter had, after working with me for 5 years, had made this summation or this observation. My attention span is about 2 weeks. So since she's made that observation, like if I go online and I buy a course, like right now I'm going through a course on how to do workshops, right? When I'm buying the course, I think to myself, can I do this in the next 2 weeks? Because if I can't, I'm not buying it. Because I know if it goes past 2 weeks, I won't do it. Right? Now, I don't mean that I need to complete it in 2 weeks. I mean, at least I'll get going and get more interested in it so I can postpone it for another 2 more weeks.
Okay.
Right?
You have a renewal factor built in. I have to remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have to ask you for renewals.
It's like you and I with foreclosure. You know, I'm off doing something else and you're still doing foreclosure. Well, what happened? I went outside of my 2 weeks and I didn't do enough. So now you're doing it and I'm not. Right? So now watch this. So you're in the achieve circle and you're looking up at your destination. And you're measuring yourself against that destination or the lack thereof.
So you're going from what you do have, and you're looking at what you don't have.
And how you can't get it.
Look what I don't have. Glass half empty. Glass half empty. Right?
And look why I can't get it. So now you start inventing in your mind reasons why you can't get it. Well, it's because the economy's bad. Well, it's because I have a job. Well, it's because, and you start inventing excuses. You start inventing reasons why you're not, right? So, this is being what we call reasonable. Reasonable is something happened, you don't know why, so you start inventing reasons why.
Yeah, this is reasonable in quotes, like not really.
Right.
Like, eh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you start making up solutions of why it didn't work. But you're just making them up. You're filling in the vacuum, filling in the hole, filling in the reasons that you really don't know. Oh, by the way, does this depress you? Yes, because your horizon is constantly moving. You can't hit it. You can't row fast enough. You can't get a speedboat to go fast enough to get across that ocean to the horizon.
Yep. Bill, I just thought of a Facebook post I saw. It's a very big rock, like 10-foot rock, like a boulder in somebody's front yard. And there's a dog running around it. He goes, and a duck chasing him. Swear to God. The dog goes halfway around, running fast, stops, looks back, duck's coming, and then runs around the other half, turns around, duck's coming. It waits for the duck to get near, and it runs away from the duck. The poor duck is always like, can't get the dog, can't get the dog. He's going around this, and it goes on for 2, and I shut it off. I mean, you just never, you can't get the horizon, you can't get the dog, you can't make your goal. Oh, man.
Exactly.
Keep telling us some solutions now. Keep going.
So what Dan and Ben say in this book is what you need to do is you need to look down, not look up. You look down, and of course I'm totally paraphrasing. This is not the way they explain it. It's my rendition of reading this book, right? So you look down, and your achievements should be measured from where you started. Now you can look at, going back to James Clear, the 1% factor. Now, I was doing this for a while and I stopped. When I lay down at night, I would say to myself, 3 things that I was glad that happened today. Or 3 things I was happy to happen. Or 3 things I was proud of. However you want to do it.
3 things you're grateful for.
There you go. 3 things you're grateful for.
That's what you said. Remember, that's what you said.
Okay.
Remember a few months ago.
Yeah.
I stopped. Do you want me to text you at night to remind you to do that?
Yeah. Set a timer up. You might have to do it. Well, it was outside of the 2 weeks, so there you go.
Oh, boy.
So the point is this. Look down at the things you have achieved and take a win on those.
Yeah.
Take a win on the obstacles that you overcame. Take a win on the things that you did. But also look up and say, this is where I'm going. Were they in alignment with that? So I'm happy that, like, for example, I want to do a deal. So I'm looking up at, I want to do a deal. I want to make 30 grand. I want to do it by August 30th. Right? And then you look from your achievements, now you look down and it's like, okay, so I'm really glad I watched that video on flippinghouses4rookies.com and I learned what a slot deal is.
Yep.
Okay? Is that really an achievement? No. It's not. It's not a part of the 1% rule. Here's the reason why. Until you have a seller that is ready for you to talk to them about being in a slot deal, You don't need that data.
Mm.
Now, I set up in my portal, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and you go all the way down to the bottom, there's, the 101 course. That's something you could do on a Saturday afternoon. There's 6 or 8 videos so you can understand what is a slot deal, what is an option deal, what's a rent to own, what's a getting the deed or a subject to deal, what's a wholesale, a rehab retail, what's a wholesale, what's owner financing. In an afternoon, you could watch all those videos. All you need is a familiarization of those, and you could tell your seller, I think we could do this, but let me call you back and I'll give you an offer. Right? Now, here's the thing that you should do. Here's the thing you should look at as an achievement. I went on flippinghousesforrookies.com and I went into free stuff, or in that course I was just telling you about down in the extra bonuses, there's a document called Lease Option Fully Explained. It's a 5-page document. You print that document and you handwrite it 10 times. You read that document into your cell phone, into a recording device on your cell phone, on your smartphone. You read it in that document and you listen to it 15 or 20 times. This is something you could do over the course of 3 or 4 days, a week at the most.
Mm-hmm.
You'll brainwash yourself in what to tell the seller. You will brainwash yourself in what to say on the phone. So you never have to worry about ever again, what do I say to the seller? And get rid of that fear. That's an achievement. That's a major achievement to you getting 30 grand.
Yeah, that takes that block away from worrying what to say, which would keep you from making the phone call in the first place.
Right. So, by doing this, looking up instead of looking down,
looking down instead of looking up? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So instead of looking up, you're looking down.
Yeah.
Right? It stopped me from making the right rational decisions and being happy. I was never happy. Always grouchy. Always, you ask me how you doing? I was measuring the wrong thing.
Well,
what I needed to...
Bill, that's a real trap.
Yeah.
Because if you're always looking ahead to get what you don't have it yet, so you can't feel like you accomplished anything because you didn't, but you're on the way. It sounds a lot like when we talk about in some of the podcasts about the formula for happiness. You have a goal, and it's not achieving the goal, it's overcoming one obstacle on the way. You feel better if you get over one thing that's stopping you. You'll feel like, I did something.
Exactly.
And you're getting you one step closer. Every step, 1%,
Exactly.
1%, 1%. I accomplished that. I'm getting there.
Right.
That's why it makes you happy, because you got something done. You'll never achieve the whole thing, because as soon as you do, you're looking at what don't I have next.
Why do you think that saying is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
Right? So what I needed to do was look at where I was started and what I have achieved instead of measuring my achievements against where I wanted to go. Measuring my achievements against my goal or ideal scene was always a letdown and made me a tyrant. And led me to never being satisfied and consistently seeking the next thing. We'd sit down at my desk after selling that 3-family house, write myself a check for $38,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you're all excited. And I'm like, Like, what do you mean, Well, $35,000 isn't going to retire me. And I would invalidate that win. And I would say, okay, where are we going to do this again next month or next week?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So what would happen is, I was never happy. The only thing that kept me together was I instilled in you and beat you to death on, when we do a deal, we got to do something. We got to go somewhere. We got to do something. Whether it's a $400 dinner, afternoon with our wives, and you're good at that. You make me do that nowadays, because normally when I do my own deals, I don't do it like I used to. I used to do it with my kids. I would do a deal and we'd go somewhere, do something. They didn't know what we were doing, but it was my celebration for doing a deal, right? So this led me to never being satisfied and constantly seeking the next thing. Was never rewarding myself. So ideal scenes and goals are meant to provide direction, motivation, with hope and meaning in our lives. Ideal scenes and goals, I'm repeating it, ideal scenes and goals are meant to provide direction, motivation. Motivation is huge. I should also put in there passion. With hope and meaning in our lives. Focusing on our gain is what you have actually done. You measure your gains and use those gains to create more and better gains. This is from Ben and Dan's book, okay? In our future. Right? You use those gains to create and better gains in our future. You frame it. You now can author your own life and start loving life. Now back to Jim Clear's idea of working on just the 1%, which is the point of this podcast. The impact of creating and changing your habits 1% is equivalent to an airplane shifting his route by a few degrees when going from LA to New York. He actually did a study. He shifted the flight. He did a study because he's a smart guy, and he shifted the course pattern by 3.5 degrees, which is not much. And of course he didn't fly it, but he just did the math. And what happened was, instead of the plane going from LA to New York, it went from LA to DC, Washington DC.
Yep. Over time, a small percentage will make a big difference, won't it?
Just
over time.
by being off a few degrees. The destination is always completely missed. All right, enough theory and philosophy. Let's get practical and do this exercise. What if I want you to do? Okay, so what I want you to do is imagine the 3 circles. A small one, then a bigger one on the outside, and then another bigger one on the outside. So they're, what do they call it? Concentric?
Concentric, like one around the other, like a target. Yeah. Small, bigger, and yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's call the smallest circle your identity, or who you're being. The next bigger one we'll call the process or your habit. In other words, what are you doing? The larger circle, all right, is your outcomes or what you want to have from being and doing this. Still be, do, have.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the major mind shift I spoke of in my title. Because I said, what if you could make one mind shift? If you focus on outcomes, in other words, what you want to have, or what you get first, we're trying to change the wrong thing, which means we change our habits or our 1% the wrong way. Now watch this. Many people, like I said, begin the process of changing the habits by focusing on what they want to have. This leads to outcome habits and often do not stick around very long, much like a New Year's resolution. They're not changing. So let me stop reading. So you have these circles, outer, smaller, inner, right? If you change what you want to have first, the arrow or the direction goes having this, doing this, being this. You're trying to change having this first.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working towards the inside. It's shallow. It's materialistic. Okay? So what happens is, so instead of working from the outside circle of outcome towards the inside circle of identity, do it backwards. Work on identity and work on your way out from there to the outcome. Now, let's use an example that Jim uses in his book. Okay. Mm-hmm. Imagine two people resisting a cigarette when offered a smoke.
Yep.
The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Yep. That's the person that's on outside working their way in. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a reasonable response, but the person still believes they are a smoker who is trying something else.
A smoker trying not to be a smoker.
Right. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. The second person declines a smoke by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." It's a small difference. But this statement signals a shift, the 1%, in identity or beingness. Mm-hmm. Smoking was part of their former life, but not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who smokes. Like the first example, they never shift the way they look at themselves. And they don't realize that their old identity can sabotage their new plans to change. Outcomes are what you get. Processes or habits are about what you do. Mm-hmm. Identity is about what you believe. Outcomes are what you get. Processes or habits are what you do, or about what you do. And identity is about what you believe. When it comes to building habits that last, or changing habits by 1% improvements, you must change your beliefs first. Then work your way out through the processes and the outcomes. Behavior that is incongruent or not in agreement with self or beliefs will not last. You may want more money from creative real estate, but if your identity is someone who consumes rather than creates, did you get that? If your identity is someone who consumes rather than creates, then you'll continue to be pulled towards spending rather than earning. I'll say that again. Someone who consumes rather than creates, then you'll continue to be pulling towards spending rather than earning. By the way, in case you missed it, I just talked about the person that has a job who consumes and an entrepreneur that actually creates. There's a major shift there.
Yeah, you know how I thought of it? Even for us who are being, entrepreneurs, you can still have a mindset where you need to have things before you do things and accomplish things. Well, I can't because I don't have. I can't do that because I don't have. And it can be true, but to hell with it being true. I'm a musician, I'm an artist, so you create things. How do you create things? You create them. You just create them. You just find something you can do and just do it. What if you woke up in the middle of the forest with no money, just clothes on your back? What do? You gather some wood. You go to the village and you say, firewood for sale.
Right.
You do something. You create out of thin air. And wealth is created pretty much out of thin air if you really look for it in the end.
Yep.
So you can do it.
This observation took me years and years and years, decades to figure it out because I could see it, but I couldn't label it. I could see it. I could see the manifestations of what I'm about to tell you, but I couldn't label it. And here it is. My motto, don't prioritize comfort over accomplishments. This way, you will start to change your habits little by little. So I have relatives, which I will remain unnameless, and they all they're trying to do is get through their week so they can get to the weekend and have comfort. They want to go out for dinner. They want to have parties. They want to, and it's like this resentfulness that they have to work Monday through Friday so that they could get to the comfort. They prioritize the comfort over the accomplishments. Where with me, people say you work a lot. Well, no, I don't work a day in my life. I'm heading for my accomplishments. I have accomplishments all the time. And I'm just working on those. I'm overcoming my obstacles, my dreams. I know we're at the end of the show and I really shouldn't do this because we got to end off. But take another example.
Yeah.
Right? I talked about it last week in the podcast. You got a dirty room. Your bedroom's dirty. Clothes all over, dirty, dirty, dirty. Right?
Yep.
You take the time out to clean your room. It's a chore. It takes you all of Saturday morning because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So it's, there's tea cups and coffee cups and food wrappers, and it's disgusting. We've all been there. Right? If you do what I'm saying and you change your identity or your core beliefs, what you could say is, actually, I'm a neat person. So how hard is it for you to throw the dirty clothes in the hamper as opposed to on the floor? I mean, what is it, a millisecond? Right? I go through this with my wife with doing dishes. I don't have time to do the dishes. And then I've actually done it dozens and dozens of times. I'll actually time myself to do the dishes. And literally, most of the time, it takes me less than 3 minutes to do a sink full of dishes.
Yep.
And if you have 1 or 2 plates, it literally takes like 30 seconds or 45 seconds to complete the cycle of action.
I've seen this too in people, and I think it's not the time it takes. They just feel that this is horrible effort. But they use the excuse, I don't have time, but it's the effort. Oh, it's too much to do. And it isn't. Just do it.
They're prioritizing comfort over accomplishment.
Yeah. The sad thing is that people think, oh, I like having fun. We go have fun. But I think you and I know that doesn't bring happiness. It's fun, but it doesn't bring happiness. The next day you don't go, wow, look what I did yesterday. I went to a movie. Oh, big deal. But if you said, wow, I bought a house yesterday. Oh, my God, that's a big deal.
Or let's just make it simple. Let's just make it simple what you just said. You do the dishes. You wake up the next morning and you say, wow, I am a clean person. Look, everything's clean. It's not dirty.
Yep.
Because you did the dishes, or you threw your dirty laundry in the waste basket, in the hamper basket instead of on the floor.
Yeah, but when you wake up in the morning, you wake up to some beauty and something nice instead of filth and disgusting. So don't you make yourself happy because, oh, this is nice. Look what I did. Looks good for me. I mean, it's a good start.
Exactly.
Then you can go to movies and have fun. Then you can have fun and really deserve it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You reward yourself. Exactly.
Picnic on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. I did, because you changed your beingness or your identity first. Yeah. And you said, I am, and you become. Now you start doing the I am things.
Right. By the way, if somebody says, well, how can I change what I am?
Decide.
Exactly. You are what you are because you decided one day. You don't remember it maybe, but it's the easiest thing to do in the world is to change your mind.
Yep.
Just change it.
All right. We'll go off
The end.
on the podcast on this. So, all right. So I wanna beat the drum here and end off on a very positive note that I will never, ever, ever not stop repeating, because I knew this, but I told it to you and you were like dazzled by it. So I've decided that this is part of our mantra.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to beat the drum and believe what Zig Ziglar once said.
Mm-hmm.
You can have everything you want in life if you will help enough people get what they want. So let me just read it. And though this may sound like a cute little saying, I suggest you look at it as your identity. Instead of being a rookie not knowing how to do creative real estate, change your identity, setting your habits to help sellers. So you could say, I'm a real estate entrepreneur that will help sellers get what they want and will definitely get what, let me read this again. So you're going to help sellers get what they want. Mm-hmm. You're going to help buyers get what they want. And you're going to get the quickest, cheapest education in feeling great about yourself and making it fun while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Because you changed your identity. I'm someone that helps sellers. Right? I'm better than realtors because I study more. I have more tools in my pocket than a realtor. I care more about realtors. Remember, realtors have a code of ethics they have to live by, and one of their number one codes are you can't reveal motivation of the client. Mm. So how much are they really helping? They're doing it for the money.
They're solving all the problems with money, and money doesn't solve every problem.
Right. So what you could do is you could decide, I'm a good communicator, even if you're not. I'm a good communicator, and I could talk to sellers, and I could help them get through the process. Real quick, I know we're 7 minutes over, but I was on my calls last night, and I had all these people watching me, and I had a guy that had a piece of property. It's a 3-family house, right? I'm sorry. That's wrong. He had a barber shop. In Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
And he's no longer being the barber. And what happened was he was renting chairs, and when he left and retired, it became like a strange place. Like the guys that were renting chairs from here, all of a sudden they were open at night, they had girls in there, they were kind of having some parties and things. so he shut it down, right? Now, here's my point, and then we're going to end. Here's my point. He's telling me he wants $70,000 for this property, which is like really good, right? Okay. Now I have a guy on the calls that's from Cleveland. He says it wasn't a very good neighborhood, but I'm not worried about that. Here's what I did. He's telling me that this morning, meaning yesterday morning, he has a girl that owns a sign shop and she wants to do a deal with him. But he wants all cash. He wants $70,000. She wants to do a land contract with him because her husband died and she's getting insurance money.
Yeah.
So she wants to use the insurance money to grow her business because she's working out of her house. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, well, why wouldn't you do that? He goes, no. I said, well, wait a minute. Why wouldn't you tell her that if she wants to do a land contract, which is monthly payments, you'll sell it to her you'll let her do it for 6 months, but she got to pay $80,000. And if she wants to do it for a year, she's got to pay $85,000 or $90,000. Mm-hmm. Oh, I never thought of that. And he brightened up. Hmm. So I had this conversation with him, leaving it off this way. I said to him, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to even try to buy your house because this girl is highly motivated, it sounds like. She should buy it. She's got a perfect use for it. It's the right person to sell it to. He had a deal before where he sold it for $70,000, and one of his friends told him he was selling it for too little money. So he went back and said to the guy, I think we should get more money after he signed the purchase and sales contract. And the guy was like, an investor like me, he was like, get away from me. And they blew the deal. So he's already like, I don't want to mess up the deal. Well, why are you doing that with this deal? Anyways, bottom line is, here's what I told him. Listen, if you make a deal with this girl, I'll charge you 1 month's rent and I'll do all the paperwork for you so you guys could put the transaction together. Why would I do that? Because my identity is I help people with real estate using my knowledge. Little or a lot. And I started that way 21 plus years ago. And because I have the attitude that I'm going to help somebody, if I don't know what it is, I need to go learn it so I can come back and help them, because I tell them, I don't know, I'm going to go figure it out. And it forces me to go get an education because I have a deal and I'm going to make money with it.
Yeah, but it's also practical because you're learning something that you can use right now, not just random data. It's very practical. It's fine.
Exactly.
And it makes you money and helps people.
Jesse, I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. I hope this helps you with your career. I hope this helps all my rookies. Peter, I know this will help you because I could see you in front of me and it looked like you responded well. Make sure you go in the description of this podcast, wherever you're watching it or listening to it. There's a link in there that will help you with all these ideas and these habits and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. There's actually habits that you should follow that I have followed, so you can go get them because they're in that link. So make sure you go check that out. With that said, sorry I went over an extra 10 minutes today instead of my normal 4 or 5 minutes, but I think it was
info. Bonus.
Yeah. So have a good week, and we will speak to you at episode number 321, which is called Creative Real Estate Meets Probate Deals.
Oh, okay.
So
well, I'll wait to talk
episode.
to you next week about that then.
So, all right, over and out. Have a good week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.